Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Rumors versus Facts, the UGA Sports Recruiting Show, where we try to take all the crap that's out there, all the rumors, all the innuendo, all the lies, and tell you what's actually going on. And we've got two good recruiting experts here. Well, one good recruiting expert and one busted hand, halfway decent guy in Lance McCalkey, who's I want to know, between you and Jed, you've both had wrist issues. Is there something about covering Georgia recruiting that gets you injured?
I got injured on where I hurt mine playing golf. So
I got injured on the job, so workers' comp all the way.
Oh my God. Jed gets injured playing golf. I mean, how the hell did you get slapped by a beer cart girl or something? I don't know. Anyway, real quick, let's talk to the transfer portal. I know we talked about Georgia recruiting, but you guys cover Georgia recruiting, and this is kind of a recruiting. These are guys leaving the program, or maybe they're guys coming into the program if there's guys on the portal that Georgia's going to get. So to me, the whole point of covering recruiting is who's going to be on your roster, who's not. So let's kind of hit some of that high points there. I want to start off, of course, with the biggest news of the day. Brock Vandegrift announces that he's leaving. So, Jed, give me your thoughts, then Lance, give me yours.
Yeah, I mean, not shocking. This is a move that people honestly thought could have happened last year. Like, I remember Brock being asked about it after G-Day. Obviously stuck it out, was the backup this year, appeared in 8 games, and announced today that he's entering the portal. And it's interesting because obviously Carson Beck hasn't made a public decision yet, but you wonder if it's a tea leaves kind of thing where Carson Beck could end up coming back. So, it's one less body in the room. Georgia's got 2 bodies coming in as far as the freshman class. We expect Gunnar Stockton to stick around no matter what Carson Beck does. So, if you're Gunnar Stockton, you'd either go into the spring probably as the presumed backup, or if Carson Beck leaves, then you'd, I guess, have the inside track at the starter job. So, Brock Vandegrift gone, not shocking, but they're just a case where, a crowded room got a little less crowded today.
Mm-hmm. I'm not really shocked either. Obviously, even last year, even before, everything was kind of like, oh, is he going to come back? Is he not? And then like Jed said, I was in that interview with him on G-Day, and he said it's really all kind of up in the air right now. I did know that, he graduated or he is going to graduate, and he wanted to get that UGA degree. So I didn't really see him leaving, at least before the start of this season. I think he gets it like next week. So he's got 2 more years left. And, he's kind of following the footsteps of, former Georgia quarterbacks that have left, and JT Daniels and Jacob Eason that have kind of, done their part. And, I think the fan base, received it well.
You mentioned JT Daniels. I'm pretty sure he hung up his cleats and is now going to be a coach somewhere. But where's Jacob Eason?
No idea.
He was kicking around practice squads for a while. I know he's with the Colts for a little bit, I think, but about all I know.
What a talent. To your point, Gunnar Stockton, people have been asking about him, and we put Brock Vandegrift on our list yesterday of guys who might potentially transfer. We listed about 8, 9 guys. We said, look, here are the guys based on what we're hearing, and they're not getting a lot of playing time, and they're not really scheduled to get a lot of playing time. Mm-hmm. So we put quite the list out yesterday. I think that thread's got 5-6 pages, 14,000 views at the dog vent. So if you want to know in other words, if you were reading yesterday, a lot of the names that popped up on the portal today did not surprise you. Okay. These were guys that, there's nothing shocking there. And I'll bring up the transfer portal here. There's also Darius Smith, Jonathan Jefferson, CJ Madden, Jackson Meeks, Austin Blasky. There are more to come. It's I'm thinking anywhere from 10 to 15. Georgia's going to be very active in adding some of these, some names out of the portal back to the team. So we can get into that here in a second. But of those guys, let's talk real quick about Jonathan Jefferson and CJ Madden. Both were a little bit surprising to me because when you're looking at guys who are going to transfer, it's usually for more playing time. Georgia's losing 4 senior defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. I was thinking Jonathan Jefferson and CJ Madden. And now CJ Madden's outside linebacker, but, that's kind of that defensive line-ish type thing. I would have thought that those guys would stick around. And what am I missing?
Yeah, Madden maybe not, only because you've got so many, young, extremely talented. Damon Wilson. If Jalen Walker becomes more of an outside linebacker. There's a lot of room there. Jonathan Jefferson, yeah, you're right. Just because he's very experienced and all these things, and he's never really made a huge impact in his career. But again, there's been guys in front of him. So,
but he looks great. He's put on so much size since last
Yeah.
time I saw him. I'm like, man, this guy's got massive.
and it seems like he could at least. And with the thing is, as much as Georgia rotates, it's not like being a backup would mean you never play. Like you played. I mean, Kristen Miller was a quote unquote backup this year and played a decent amount. Had a couple good plays in the SEC championship. So maybe a little surprising only because playing time seems like it's there, but he could be just wanting to look somewhere else. Darius Smith is one where that's its own. That's been reported for a while. That's more of a he had that incident and he was away from the team. So that one's been on the wall for a while. You look down the list there, Jackson Meeks, another one who has just never really cracked that receiver rotation. I mean, great on special teams, absolutely a dynamo there. And then Austin Blasky is a guy who I think if he had stayed, he would have maybe started somewhere, only because Georgia's losing a lot of different guys. Like he was battling with Ernest Green there for a while to start at left tackle this year. So, but again, I mean, maybe these guys just want to look at greener pastures, want another opportunity. It's not always just straight playing time, but none of these, as you mentioned, Roddy, none of these names on this list are, like when the Bear Alexander one came out last year, that was like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah, it's like, what the hell?
Mitchell was a little like, whoa, where? I mean, you understood it. He wanted to be close to home, but it was still a whoa, where's this coming from? None of these guys on this list are especially
close to home. My ass, man, come on, that's not why he left.
He ended up close to home.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But again, it's
AD Mitchell wanted to be closer to home.
Yeah. It was none of these on this list are out of left field for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think Blasky's a little interesting, obviously, just because Roddy, you talked about last week. Georgia's probably losing 4 offensive linemen. Tate Ratledge, I think could stay, but I mean Blasky's been versatile. But I think he lost a little weight before the season and battled an injury. But that's an interesting one. But I know that that's been that doesn't come as a surprise as well.
Well, to me, Austin Blasky, state championship wrestler, was battling Ernest Green for that left tackle spot. Got a lot of first team reps. Then got sick. Then got injured, and it set him back. Mm-hmm. Then when Amaris Mims goes down, they move Truss over. Truss has got like 2 years on him, and Truss plays over there. Micah Morris and Dylan Fairchild grab that left guard spot. But to me, when you lose, look at it from left to right. Ernest Green comes back. Xavier Truss is gone at left guard. Cedric Van Pran at center is gone. And Tate Ratledge at right guard is gone. Amaris Mims is going to go to the NFL a year early. Right tackle gone. Like, man, Austin could fit any of these spots. Yeah. Now, I get it. You're probably going to bring in Monroe Freeling at that right tackle spot. You're going to bring in Jarrett Wilson at center. Micah Morris and Dylan Fairchild could be your guards. But I'm like, man, Austin. And again, Austin has a lot of options. So I just thought that was kind of a blow to Georgia's potential there. I mean, Georgia's rebuild, if you will, because he could be really good. Jackson Meeks plays in every game. He's a special teams baller, but it's just a loaded wide receiver room, so I could see why he doesn't get as many snaps. Mekhi Muse, somebody's telling me, hey, I think Mekhi might go into the portal. I'm like, maybe, but that's another guy who, if he's on a different team, Jackson Meeks is a starter somewhere. Mekhi Muse is a starter somewhere. CJ Smith is a starter somewhere. It's tough. Some of the other guys we were looking at, maybe a Tyler Williams, Lou Baugh, the offensive lineman, Nyland Green, the cornerback. Those are all guys who might go into the portal, and if they do, they are going to find a warm reception somewhere else. There's a lot of places those guys can play. So, a lot of questions over here about Michael Williams.
Yeah, I saw somebody say, where is it in here?
It was you.
Michael has removed all Georgia stuff off his bio. His Twitter right here says defensive end at University of Georgia. So, that is what it is. But, we have kind of, I've seen that out there. I don't personally see Michael leaving. I mean, he's, he seems to be pretty, well liked by his teammates. He obviously plays a lot. Didn't have as great a year this year, I think, as maybe some had hoped. But he had that nagging. I think he had a foot injury there for a while. It slowed him down in fall camp. But I don't foresee him leaving. But again, I wouldn't have foresaw Bear Alexander leaving at this time last year.
Not only that, talk to me about a couple of the names at quarterback nationwide that jumped in the portal first thing this morning.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle McCord from Ohio State. I mean, that one was surprising. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma is surprising. I'm trying to think. There's so many guys who went in. I mean, DJ Uiagalelei makes sense only because Oregon State has a new coach. They have no conference. I mean, it's not funny if you're an Oregon State fan, but it's amazing with the state that program's in all of a sudden. But guys, if you're Kyle McCord, you're thinking, man, I just went 11-1. I lose to Michigan by a touchdown or whatever, and I got folks wanting to run me out of town. So and I saw, it was on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or the Ohio State board this morning, but people speculating that Ohio State had told McCord, thanks but no thanks, because they want to get a portal guy. So then that sets off this whole other,
Well, his head coach said, "Yeah, we're going into the bowl game. We're going to have an open competition at quarterback."
Yeah.
What a big F you to your starting quarterback. If Kirby Smart came out tomorrow and said, "Yeah, we're going to have a quarterback competition for this game, this bowl game. Hey, Carson, we know you have other options, but we're going to let you fight it out with Ryan Puglisi, Gunnar Stockton, Brock's taking off. You got to beat out Dylan Raiola coming in." If I'm Carson, I'd be like, "So what? This whole season, I would feel FSU'd. I would feel, like my regular season doesn't count for something. You could do that behind the scenes. All positions are open, right? Kirby always says that. Everyone has to fight and earn their position every day. You can be challenged any day for that sort of thing. But to say it publicly, man, they got a lot of kids in the portal over there. Chris Taylor's asking what's going on at Ohio State.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Makes you wonder if the culture.
Ooh, the C word. You went right to it.
It's kind of changing over there with 3 straight losses to what did they Teton, the school or the pro, I don't know, school up north or something like that, Michigan. So
come on, Jermaine. There's only 2 teams left over there. All it takes is one of them to transfer, and that's Jermaine's already trolling the show. And Andy So says they told him bye because they're going after Dante Moore. I can see it.
Yeah, and I mean Dante Moore is, he comes in, he's a true, I want to say he was a 5-star maybe on Rivals, starts either all over most of the year at UCLA, and then he goes in the portal. And I know there's some uncertainty around Chip Kelly. As far as I know, he still has a job, but it's like, nothing is sacred is a little bit of a cliche, but like just because you are a quarterback and you have a good year at a place, that does not mean you're coming back. So, and if you're Kyle McCord, it's not a guarantee that you're wanted back if that's the case. So it's crazy, man. It's this first day. I've seen it on Twitter a few times today that people say this is like how signing day used to be with all the craziness everywhere. And I'm Pepperidge Farms old enough to remember how those signing days used to be. And it's right. It's just everywhere you look, there's craziness somewhere.
We used to get up and go ahead.
I think there were like 3 UGA guys before 11 a.m. in the portal.
Well, now to be fair, we mentioned Nyland Green might go in there, Jackson Meeks, Alou Ba, Austin Blaskey, Chad Lindbergh. Chad's been around a while. He's another graduate. We mentioned Blaskey. We said if Carson Beck returns, look for Brock Vandegrift and or Gunnar Stockton transfer. Well, Brock decided he wasn't going to wait to find out. And maybe he has. Maybe there is the possibility that Carson Beck has told them, "Hey, I'm coming back." And so Brock's like, "Look, I'm going." Especially, I was thinking that he would wait further until he heard from Brock. But to your point, you said 3 guys were in there already. What happened first thing this morning? Dylan Gabriel, like you say, all these guys put their name in the portal. If you're thinking about going into the portal and you're a quarterback, you got to jump on the stick, man. It's like, oh crap, I can get my name out there.
Specifically, if you want to go somewhere and start next year, if you're not there for the spring, that's really, really, really going to set you back. Like if you show up on campus June 1st or whatever, it's going to make it tough on you to be starting 2 months later, 3 months later. So, getting in there as quick as you can is essential because, again, theoretically, you could be there for next semester and you start spring practice in March. So waiting around and seeing what Carson Beck's going to do, and then, maybe not getting into a place, before the spring, or, if all these schools fill their vacancies the next week or two, that makes it tough on yourself. So it's, again, it's every guy's decision has effects everywhere else. It's a domino effect everywhere.
Yeah. So I was thinking Brock would wait and find out what Carson's going to do. Then if Carson hasn't decided, my first thought was once the Brock Vandegrift news will tell us what Carson Beck is doing. But now I can't say that. And speaking to people close to the program, there's not been a definitive answer one way or the other. So if Carson Beck decides to go pro, it's the Gunnar Stockton era, and he's going to kill it. He's very, very talented. You guys have all seen him. I want to cover a bunch of his games. He's a very exciting quarterback. Georgia can win a national title with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. I have very little doubt. He's not the biggest guy, but he's a baller. And you talk to people who go to practice, they're like, that kid is wild. I know Trent probably agrees with me, or maybe doesn't. I don't know. Trent, give us your thoughts real quick on the Georgia quarterback situation. We're talking transfer portal. Then we're going to move on to some other guys that might wind up in this recruiting class, and maybe we'll talk some guys who might go into it and might come out of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just came in when Jed was talking about having to get on campus early. Brock has waited his turn for 3 years and it hasn't come, and for now he's had to make the decision. I got to go. I got to make a choice because he wants to play, and I don't blame him. He's 3 years out of high school. He wants to play. He's been able to graduate. He's really good in school. Do what?
Wasn't he like a 5-star guy?
Yeah, he was a 5-star guy. So
I was surprised want to play right away.
I'm surprised that it's taken this long, and the fact that he came back, he wanted to compete with Beck for the starting job with Stetson left, and when he didn't win that job, he wants to go and he wants to get on the campus early, and he wants to be the starter next fall. And if he waits, find out what Beck does, and it goes into January, now he's behind the 8 ball, and
big programs have already gotten a kid out of the portal.
And with all the kids in the portal, people are not going to wait around for a Brock Vandegrift who hadn't played in 3 years. And I'm not saying anything about him because I think he can be very good. I think he'd be a starting quarterback. I think he'd be a starting quarterback at Kentucky or a starting quarterback somewhere. But there's too many options.
Auburn or Oregon.
There's too many options out there for him to wait around and then get left behind again. And then all his only options is go to like Central Michigan or something like that. So, he had to make this choice. With all the players going in the portal, this is something he had to do. And, if at this point, if Beck decides to come back, he'll be QB1. If he doesn't, I don't think you're losing much between Brock and Gunnar. I think that's pretty much – I think that is I think Georgia probably, told him, we can't give you 100% answer that you're going to be the starting quarterback next year. I think that'd be another thing. I think they would be an open competition. So what happened if Gunnar beat him out? Then he'd be in the same position as he was. So I don't think the quarterback position is going to be handed to Vandegrift if Beck went pro.
Real quick, I think it's a good question here from Andy. Says if Beck leaves and Brock doesn't come back, and again, Brock Vandegrift could come back. You put your name in the portal doesn't mean you have a destination in mind all the time. Now we saw Max Johnson mentioned that he was going to go in the portal and that had basically committed to UNC before the portal even opened. So sometimes, and
I think with Georgia not being in the playoffs, you're going to hear a definite answer from Beck one way or another in the next 7 days. So I think that in that case, if Vandegrift don't like his options at that point, or if he doesn't get the option that he wants, he could very well come back and say, hey, I'm just going to come back and try to be the starting quarterback at Georgia.
Amaris Mims did it. Put his name in the portal, took a visit to FSU and said, same for me. Came back and is kicking butt. So he's not gone. He's just put his name in the portal, which allows him to legally speak directly to coaches and such like that. So it doesn't have to be backroom, your parents talking to somebody at that school or something like that, or friends or a former head coach. But the question is, would the Dogs go to the portal for a quarterback? Yes, because
Yeah,
let's say that
possible.
Brock leaves and Carson goes to the NFL.
I think it depends on the options.
Well,
Yeah.
it leaves you with Gunnar Stockton,
Yeah.
and then 2 true freshman quarterback guys who were playing in high school that last couple of weeks. You're going to tell me that Kirby Smart's not going to go find somebody, and he's going to say, "Look, we've played for 2 national titles. We've had 3 undefeated seasons. We've gone 8-0 in the SEC 3 years in a row. We had a 29-game win streak. We got all these offensive linemen. We got running backs. We got wide receivers. I mean, if you're anybody out there, you're like, hey, I was about to go to, play at Texas A&M. I was about to go to play at UNC. I was about to go to, Stanford, but I can go to Georgia. I think Kirby'd have his pick.
And I also think that Georgia wouldn't go after a guy with 2 or 3 years of eligibility. I think you're looking at a guy to come in as a 1-year eligibility guy and come in, see if you can win the job, kind of like a Grayson Lambert did, and come if you win the job over Gunner, you win it. But this is your 1 year.
Yeah, you're kind of a one and done there. So let's see. Real quick, there was a shakeup in the rankings. Jed, do you want to touch on that real quick while I'm looking through the comment section here?
Yeah, since I'm solely responsible for these rankings, I'll go ahead and put it out there. Dylan Raiola is number 2 overall, which he dropped behind Ohio State receiver Jeremiah Smith, which Jeremiah Smith is a freak show. He's nuts. Raiola's still the number 1 quarterback, still a 5-star, obviously, just not number 1 overall in the country. Cornerback commit Ellis Robinson is number 8 overall, which was a rise of, I think, 5 spots. He is also a freak show. And then linebacker Justin Williams is number 11 overall. So 3 5-stars for Georgia, 3 out of, I want to say there's 25 or 26. The full rankings come out tomorrow. Again, I put a lot of time into them. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia is going to be well represented. There's a couple guys on there who are well overdue to be in the rankings that are finally in there. So, with a sneak peek for tomorrow. But yeah, Dylan Raiola, I mean, I think he isn't, I've said this on the show before, I don't know that he's ready to come in and start day 1, even theoretically having a spring to get ready. I don't think Ryan Puglisi would, because it's tough to do in the SEC, but the upside for both of those guys is huge. So, yeah, Puglisi or Raiola number 2 overall, Ellis Robinson number 8, and Justin Williams number 11.
Not a bad haul for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Sticking on before we get to some guys that are high school kids who might join the Georgia class, let's talk about maybe some guys in the portal that Georgia might be looking to add. A lot of questions about Walter Nolan. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about him real quick. Trent, I'm putting you on the spot. How bad does Georgia want Walter Nolan, or do they want him?
I mean, I don't know of a school that wouldn't want not Walter Nolan, but I think the fact is that and we've always talked. Kirby's always when you talk about NIL, Kirby's going to use a guy. He's going to use NIL on a guy that is proven rather than unproven, and especially in the trenches. So I don't think NIL is an issue unless it was just like a massive bidding war. I think Alabama's going to be involved. I think Tennessee's going to be involved. I think Georgia's going to be involved. He's from Tennessee. I think, of course, Alabama and Georgia put D linemen in the NFL. This is his money year. I think he's going to look at options that are going to put guys in the NFL. So I would look no further than Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama as 3 schools that are going to be in the mix, possibly in LSU, but I would lean more towards the other 3. But I do think those 3 schools are going to go after him heavily. I think a bunch of schools are going to go after him heavily, but I think he's going to look towards, a lot of these kids came out of high school and looked for NIL, but this is his money year. This is his draft stock year, and he's definitely a guy that could be a first rounder. And
it's almost, if you think about it in terms of, it's almost like a year at Georgia, you could almost look at it as like an internship, right? You go learn under these guys who have sent so many defensive linemen to the NFL, and NFL scouts, 1, will see you all the time in practice, and 2, you can say, hey, I've learned under Trey Scott. I've learned under Kirby Smart. I've gotten, not to say that the coaching at Texas A&M is bad, but it's just one more stop of these guys who have proven to send guys to the NFL, a program that is very highly respected by NFL scouts and GMs and everything like that. So like you said, Trent, it could be a 1-year stop and, off to the NFL, but it would be a stop that would, I think, greatly enhance Walter Nolan's value to
and I think Kirby has the ability to turn on the film and say, look, this is where we were at 2 years ago with Jalen Carter. This is where we were at 3 years ago with all the other guys, Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. This is where we was. This is where
Trayvon
we was
Walker
last year. And although we did have a lot of seniors on that defense line, we didn't have the overall talent, and we want to get back to that talent. And you could come in and get our 2001, 2002 defense back rather than our 2023, because I think they had the talent showed. I know some of those guys played. and with Jalen Carter and those guys. But when you got one difference maker in the middle, it kind of just cures everything. I think Michael Williams was worse this year without Jalen Carter. I think because when you put somebody that's probably not as talented as him, now Michael Williams is more focused on, and he's been shut down. So I think if you can get somebody in there next to a Michael Williams, you can get back to that 2022 or 2021 defense.
I remember the first time I really learned that lesson. It was David Pollock's first year. Everybody was focused on Gerald Anderson. Everybody. He was the man. And that let Pollock almost be a free agent out there just destroying people. Now, he did go on to have Gerald Anderson went off to the NFL, and Pollock had 2 more years of All-Americanness in him. So it wasn't that, it gave him time to develop. And I think we saw the difference that Georgia last year when Jalen Carter missed some games, that defensive line wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Now, I specifically knowing that there was such a difference with him in the game and with him out of the game. In Los Angeles last year, went up to Trey Scott and said, "You're losing a generational talent in Jalen Carter. What about Georgia's defensive line next year?" And he was so excited about Georgia's defensive line. He kept talking about the depth, and said Warren Brinson, we kept him from going to the NFL. I mean, didn't prohibit him, but they're like, he's coming back. He's going to be big. We got Nazir Stackhouse, Terry Dawkins, all these guys. We're so deep. We've never been this deep. Yeah, but you don't have difference makers. Those guys aren't Jalen Carter. Now, here's the thing. I'm with you. If Walter Nolan comes back, any of these defensive linemen, I just clicked on it. Not all the names have populated through of top defensive linemen, but if you can go to the portal, and you're going to need to get some defensive linemen because, as we said, 4 guys graduate, 2 guys are already in the portal. Could be more coming out of the portal. Georgia needs to rebuild that defensive front. They were in the thick of it for Walter Nolan for a long time. I could definitely see them going after him, a bunch of other names. But if you can say, hey, I learned under Trey Scott, and he's the one that taught these other 4 first-round, NFL draft picks, that helps you when you go and you sit in those meetings in Indianapolis. Jed and I talked to those guys up there, like, hey, what was it like? Meeting with the Packers? What was it like meeting with the Falcons? What was it like meeting with the Steelers? Like, they put me up on the whiteboard and they peppered me with questions about the offense and how to play this technique and how to play that technique. Like, how'd you do? Well, I answered them all. I go to Georgia. We run an NFL system. So I could see that's going to be very exciting or very tempting for a guy to come to Georgia and play defensive line. All right.
For sure.
What about, it was like, Stewart? A lot of people asking about Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Georgia was in it till the end. I think he's a little bit, if I remember them right, I believe he's a little different player than Nolan. I think Nolan is more strictly interior, whereas like Stewart is a guy who you could slide in and out a little bit if it came down to it. But yeah, I mean, Georgia honestly might have been in it more longer for Shamar Stewart even than they were Walter Nolan. I remember he took a long unofficial visit to Georgia. He took an official, I think. So it's those 2 guys. And again, Kirby Smart has said, ideally we want guys who we've had prior relationships with and or coached against. And Kirby Smart knows those guys. Trey Scott obviously knows those guys. Schumann, all the defensive staff, knows those guys. So that would, that's one more connection I think that you look for in this thing. Georgia, they don't just go, okay, who's the, number one guy on the board? We'll offer him. It's guys they know, guys they've played against, schemed against. The Vanderbilt receiver, London Humphreys, is the guy that caught that long touchdown on the first drive of the game for Vanderbilt. So it's, you know who that is, you know what he can do. So that's another thing to look for, I think, when Georgia's looking for guys out of the portal.
You kind of got a still point with Shamar Stewart too, if he happens to go into the portal. He's 6'5", 6'6", 280. Does that remind you of anybody? First round pick a couple years ago, might have came out of Georgia. So he's got that ability. I mean, he's got that ability to play that 5 tech, slide in, play that when Georgia goes to the nickel, play that defensive tackle position. So I mean that is that would definitely be a combo. I mean, you take Walter Nolan. I've seen somebody mention Deion Walker.
I was waiting for you to say his name.
I'm telling you, if Deion Walker goes in the portal, Kirby will do a backflip.
It's over. Kirby will drive up there on the spot.
I'm telling you, that would be his number one target. I know everybody loves Walter Nolan. I think Deion Walker would be that number one guy for Kirby. If you teamed up a Walter Nolan or Deion Walker with Shamar Stewart and Michael Williams, your defensive line is fine because you got Jordan Hall behind them. You got Christian Miller. Christian Miller came on late. I thought he played really good, and I think all the guys like Christian Miller and Michael Williams playing that 5 and 3. All they're missing is a good nose. You're only missing somebody that can plug the middle and not get blown off by those double teams. And I think that is where Georgia lacked this year, and they get blown up in the middle. And edge, but I'm not going to go there. So
yeah, hey, be nice. Real quick, Jason. Jason King says, "What about Brian Taylor?"
Yeah, I mean he was on an official visit for the Ole Miss game. He is taking an official visit to Florida this coming up weekend, and he told me he wants to commit next week. I think, he when I asked him yesterday, I said, "Hey, has Georgia been hitting you up a lot?" And he said, "Yeah, well, it's died off a little bit." And he interpreted that as, Georgia's focused on Alabama, things like that. But and Trent, I think you kind of mentioned this yesterday. I think it might be more of a focus on the portal and get those proven guys, get those guys who have played at this high major level, and go from there. Not saying Brian Taylor couldn't come to Georgia. I just think the focus at this point might be more on those portal guys.
Yeah, and I think you have to sit back, and this is where I think the transfer portal has been a bad thing. Is JUCO kids have no chance, because who are you going to take? A proven guy that played at Texas A&M or a proven guy that played at Florida? Or are you going to take a proven guy that played at Dallas Community College or wherever it happened to be? I think you're going to take a SEC caliber kid that's played 2 years instead of having somebody have to get up to the speed. And I think Georgia's going to test their luck in the portal before they go to a JUCO guy, because you're getting a guy with similar eligibility.
I agree, but you are completely right. But it did work out well for Jermaine Burton. I'm not Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Johnson. I got that. At least I didn't get the head coach.
We're gonna break your other wrist.
Did it? He was at Florida State. He's a Florida State alum.
He was at Georgia for 1 year. Ended up leaving, goes to Florida State, but does get drafted very high. So
I can tell you, there's been about 2 guys out of 64 JUCO players that have worked out at Georgia.
Oh yeah,
and when you get the portal now.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I agree, but yeah, I mean,
you can hit a diamond in the rough. There's 100% no doubt about it. I mean, who's the guy that we're still waiting to catch a pass? Was that Rump or who was that kid? I don't remember who that kid was. Was that
Jonathan Rumpf out of the JUCO college? I get some of the transfers confused. I was thinking about when they brought in Jakar Hamilton out of GMC, and then they brought in.
Was there a defensive lineman out of Notre Dame one of Kirby's first years?
Yeah, Jay Hayes.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, real quick, about JUCO kids. It's one of the things that is used against Georgia on the recruiting trail all the time. Okay, my son's 19. He was when he was looking to go to college. I'm like, hey, buddy, you want to go to UGA? He's like, nah. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I got the grades to get in there. I'm like, you're an all-A student. He's like, Dad, yeah, I got you in back in your age, back in the 1700s. But right now, it's my grades aren't going to get me in there. Plus, he wanted to go the whole ROTC thing. So he's at UNG doing all kinds of crazy military stuff. And I'm happy for him, but I get it. My niece was on deferred. She's got a resume to get into UGA that I could only dream of. You know, it's insane. The ACT, SAT scores, all the AP classes, all the stuff. It's tough to get in. Now, here's the thing. They don't have classes for people that are that smart and then classes for dumb people like me. So if you're coming into UGA, you have to be a football player and still go to the classes for all these smart people. And it's used against Georgia on the recruiting trail all the time because they don't have these striated classes like the tough classes. And here's some easy ones. Here's some basket weaving that you can go take. You got to take tough classes. So, and that's another reason. And again, I know nothing about Brian Taylor's grades or his thing, but you have to be academically tight to be successful at Georgia right now. So, and that's used against him on the trail all the time.
I think he could be good, but it's just the fact that you're coming in like a senior out of high school, basically, and you got to get up to the speed. I think the speed is what is really the major part is being able to get up to SEC speed. It doesn't matter if you're coming out of high school or coming out of the JUCO; it's just not the same. And so it's that learning curve, and some kids could knock it out of the park. I mean, and catch on fast. But I think, if you're looking at a Georgia, it's similar to the like MLB. Am I going to take somebody from AAA, or am I going to trade for somebody who's been there, had the bats? The upside might be there, but it's just.
You're right. Real quick, give me some guys that you think Georgia may be getting.
Wide receiver that's ranked number 99.
Yeah.
London.
Start with me on the damn rankings.
Just scroll all the way to the bottom.
All right.
See if you see McConkey on there. No, I'm just kidding.
They don't. Man, you're gonna give people heart attacks. London Humphreys. I mean, come on, look at that face. Look at that face. You want that kid on your team. You want him at SEC media days. Come on.
Is that a little mullet working back there?
I don't know. It could just be a bad haircut. Or I mean, not a bad haircut, a bad trim job around the background. When you knock out the background on the photo and it cuts off somebody's hair incorrectly. So, London Humphreys, and there's a question about Trevor Etienne in there too. He's not in the portal yet, is he?
I don't think so. That was initially. It was kind of going back and forth.
Deion Walker's not in there either, and Shamar Stewart's not in there. But
yeah, exactly.
It could be coming, right? But London Humphreys is. So
our Florida guy Jason Higdon was kind of saying, he might go, he might not go. He's meeting with coaches now. He might go. So that's kind of a up in the air one that's could still go either way. But yeah, I mean, I remember in his recruitment, he had Georgia in his top schools for a long time, even when Georgia had. Branson Robinson committed and Jordan James. Then later they got Andrew Paul, but he clearly there was a lot that Etienne liked about Georgia. So that could be a guy. I wonder if running back could be something they look to add maybe after spring, just because you might have a better idea of how Andrew Paul's coming along, how Branson Robinson's coming along. How these freshmen look. I don't know that. It's just a thought. If you look to get a body. To add to the room, and you've got a little bit better idea of how things are progressing health wise with some of those guys. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Georgia add a guy in the portal because you figure, Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton are probably both gone.
And which ones are early enrollees? Frazier's not.
Dwight Phillips, I don't think is because he wants to run track in the spring.
So you're only looking at
one.
Chauncey Bowens.
Chauncey Bowens is the only one. So you really are going to play spring ball with Andrew Paul, Chauncey Bowens, and
Roderick.
Jones.
Roderick, and then Cash.
I don't know. How old's Cash?
I don't know.
He's up there.
But possibly Cash. So you really get – I guess you got Whitehead. But
I would say Laneith Whitehead.
Didn't even know. Haven't even seen him down there. So – you still got some guys that you can go through spring with, but I don't know how far you're getting as far as a playmaker. I think your two playmakers are the play guys that are going to enroll in the summer. I think Chauncey Bowens can be good, but I think Nate Frazier's a home run hitter. Dwight Phillips is a home run hitter, and you're not going to know what you got with him to the summer. So, it's not going to surprise me. I think if Etienne goes in there, Georgia would be very interested. I think, and I think Etienne would be very interested in Georgia.
Yeah, they don't have a guy like him right now.
I think LSU is another school because that's home, but it's. I think Georgia would definitely be interested because, like it or not, I think Kendall Milton did a great. Kendall Milton and Dejon did great. That's good stuff. Hey, the dog father always brings
Hits me every time. That bastard. Folks, if you're not watching the show and you're listening to it on the podcast, which I promise I will put this podcast up. I missed up the last week.
Is Julian coming back for his 8th year?
Yeah, Dog Father says Cash Jones is moving in with Julian Rochester this year. Stop it, Dog Father. Get back on your TikTok live. That's all you ever do.
But yeah, I think Georgia needs a difference maker. I think Kendall played great. I think Dejon picked up the slack throughout the year when everybody was down. I think Dylan Bell came in and played good minutes. I still think there needs to be a difference maker. They haven't had a difference maker.
Well, that was my point about Trevor Etienne.
I think he would be a difference maker. I think he's better than what they had this year at the running back position. And what they had this year was playing over the younger guys. So my point is that they need a difference maker, and he might be the ticket until you get the 2 summer guys up to speed.
A lot of folks asking, what do you think Arian Smith will do? His name has been postulated as a guy going into – I haven't heard anything about him going into the portal anytime soon. Could happen. Nothing would shock me. Just like, someone's asked about CJ Smith and Mike Muse. I'm like, again, haven't heard those. We listed the names that we were hearing at UJSports.com. You can check that out. It's pinned at the top of the dog vent. And there is a transfer tracker on the front page of the site where you can check out the names that have gone in so far and maybe some names that might be coming Georgia's way. So if you check out the transfer tracker that Jed threw together today, it's got the names of the guys that are in there. And on the dog vent at UJSports.com, we have the latest rumors and innuendo and what we were hearing that may happen. And again, the last 3 or 4 years, we have been dead on in our lists of who's going, who's considering it, who they're worried about. Sometimes it's not so much a guy that's listed himself as, said he's going into the portal. Sometimes we just hear from folks within the program. They're like, yeah, we're worried about this guy going in the portal. So we put their name on there just to let folks know that that is a possibility. To get ahead of it, we try to keep everybody up to date on what the heck's going on. All right, so I think that's is there anybody else we need to worry about going into the portal or Georgia getting out of the portal?
I think we hear about everybody.
I think the key spots, I think they'll add 1 or 2 wide receivers. I think that taking another wide receiver in this class is I think that they'd rather get somebody that's proven to come in and play.
Like Luther Burden?
Do what?
Like Luther Burden?
I thought you said Jermaine Burton. I was about to slap.
No, I was like Luther Burden. I can't wait till I get the calls from the NFL scouts. Hey, he was at Georgia. What did he do there? Well, I'll tell you what he did.
It's like getting the calls about a certain. Never mind. A coach.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls about guys at Georgia, like because we cover them in recruiting. So they'll say, "Hey, what happened in high school when this kid got injured?" And because they want to know it's a long lasting thing. Are they trying to hide it? What kind of players? Did he go to all the practices? Did he go to all the meetings? Stuff like that. So we get a lot of character reference calls. They don't call us up to ask us about our analytical skills. Hey, do you think he can? Can he drop back into coverage? They're never going to ask us that. They always want to know news type stuff. So,
yeah.
And we pass along what we know. Yeah, exactly. In other words, am I going to make a $17 million mistake on this kid? Just
Well,
to find out?
he's at his 8th school in 7 years. I don't know. Do you want to?
But you're right about trying to add a different, maybe a couple wide receivers there. And it's, hey,
I think when you play teams like Alabama, that they're going to get up in your face and they're going to bump coverage you. I think that's one reason why Ladd was trying to play. And I know a lot of people, say would Georgia been better off without him playing? I don't know, because Ladd's one of the few guys that has the quickness and ability to get open and hurt or not. And I think you saw with I think Dylan Bell's a great player, but you always saw Dylan Bell in contested catches because he didn't create as much separation as other guys. I think Ra-Ra's a guy that created separation. I think that's the reason why he was on the field. And I think Dylan Bell has the potential to be really good. I mean, I think he's a playmaker. But I think you see those tough contested catches because he's not creating that separation off the get. You watch Ladd McConkey, he just leaves guys, and you don't expect that. So I think they need to get some guys that can, on the outside, that can be difference makers and create that space and make those tough contested catches. And I think Dylan Bell can make those tough contested catches. Just creating separation is the key.
You were 100% correct. Speaking of covering guys, you had a pretty good update there. We posted it 2 hours ago, Jed, about Marcelis Barnes. Tell us the latest on Marcelis Barnes. Who is he, and why does it matter? Why are we talking about him on Rumors versus Facts?
Well, he is one of the few high school targets left as far as the 24 class goes. Defensive back from Chattanooga, as you can see from this lovely picture there. Just won a state championship for the Macaulay School in Chattanooga, and Georgia's been after him for a while. He visited for a couple games this year. Fran Brown is gone. And he was honest. He said, yeah, it hurt Georgia a little bit, but not too much because, I've still got a lot of confidence in Kirby Smart, a lot of confidence in Will Muschamp. They're going to develop me, that kind of stuff. And an interesting quote he had was, he said, my parents are telling me to make this decision based on what my goals are. And my goals are to go to the NFL. And I think Georgia could get me there the best. He's looking at Georgia. He's looking at Ole Miss. LSU is coming on strong. He said Fran Brown has offered him at Syracuse. So, I mean, what I came away from that interview with is Fran Brown's departure did not disqualify Georgia from this race at all. He's going to take an official visit to Georgia. He said Georgia is likely to get his first official visit just because, even with Fran Brown gone, he's been talking to Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp the longest out of any of these coaches involved in his recruitment. So Georgia still has a good shot to land him. It's a packed schedule because it's December 4th. Signing day is in 16 days. He wants to take official visits to Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, maybe Syracuse, and then probably commit on or around signing day. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks for Marcelis Barnes. I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia gets up there for an in-home type deal at some point. And yeah, he could be the fourth guy they look to add in this defensive back class for sure.
We also talked about
I just want to mention one more thing on you were all talking about Arian Smith earlier. I love the way that Bobo designed that play on Saturday where they lined up in the slot. Mm-hmm. Arian Smith is not as fast as he is, and he's not an outside receiver. I think they need to spend more time with him in the slot. And I know Dominic Lovett's there, but I would love to see him more in the slot because it allows him to play more free without getting bump coverage. And you have to play a safety over the top with a nickel. Yeah, he's going to run past any nickel in the game. So I think playing him in the slot more gives Georgia that more opportunity to take those deep shots, or it opens up other things because you have to play a safety over the top of him every time.
Yeah, I love when they get that single high safety and he has to shade there, and then they run a little out route. There's nobody over there.
Especially with a guy like Brock, where you can just make the safety just stutter just a little bit, mm-hmm. and you run that route that he ran the other day, like that fade going towards the sideline. It's unguardable, especially with a guy with his speed.
Hey, you're right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Same, like mine's right there. Real quick, we mentioned Brian Taylor, the defensive end. Talk to me real quick about Terrell Anderson.
Yeah, big guy from North Carolina.
We're talking about receivers, so
yeah. it's still kind of up in the air. I mean, he's still. I mean, we always say on here when you're committed till you're not. He has had a lot of opportunities to back off that pledge from North Carolina State. He is not. Georgia is a pursuit. He's really close with Dylan Raiola as well. He is that big body X type. Marcus Rosenby, Jack Saint.
Looks 45 years old. Good
God. So we'll see. I mean, again, like I just said with Marcelis Barnes, I would expect the Georgia staff to probably go in home with him at some point, I would think. And we'll see. He could be one at this point. It might come down to signing day. He might just end up flipping on signing day and signing with Georgia then. And something else to mention about these in-home visits too.
Are his arms touching his kneecaps?
Yeah.
God, Scotty.
It's like
monster.
Because I've seen questions about who is the staff going to go in home with, and I would expect most, if not all, the commits are going to get in home visit. Barnes probably will, Anderson will, but like this time last year, nobody knew who Jamal Merriweather was, and Stacey Searles goes in home with him. They offer him, and he flips from UCF to Georgia. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Who are the unknown guys that just pop up out of nowhere? Could they go see a I guess receiver might be a quote unquote position of need, I guess. Do they go see a receiver when it's not on the radar yet? Do they go see a defensive back who's not on the radar yet, offer him and flip him somewhere? So that's going to be the interesting thing. I mean, commits are probably going to get in-home visits. Like I said, the 2 targets, but it's going to be interesting to see who that's not really on the radar right now, where the Georgia coaches show up in terms of those guys.
And I think I think the staff's probably waiting. Not only is this the first week of recruiting, but basically you're recruiting your team back this week, having those team meetings, having those player meetings, finding out who's going where, if somebody's leaving, if players are staying. So I think you're going to see, if you see more receivers. I saw Jackson Meeks go in the portal today. If you see a couple more receivers go in the portal, that means you got to take a couple more numbers in either the portal or this class. So when they get a finalized number, that could open up a spot, to pursue Terrell and several others.
Makes sense. Let's get to some of the questions at the vault at UJ Sports. Now, folks, if you're not a member of UJ Sports, you should definitely sign up. And there's 2 main message boards. There's the Dog Vent, where we talk all Georgia football, all the other college football topics. There's always fun stuff going over there. And every once in a while, you'll see like, hey, I'm in Hilton Head. You have any recommendations for restaurants? And that'll be a 10-page thread about restaurant recommendations or bourbon talk. But most of the time it's Georgia football and Georgia's opponents in football. But the other message board you should check out if you're at UGA Sports is the Vault. And the Vault's where we talk recruiting. And we'll jump to our first question here from Medical Dog. He says this is the transfer portal edition. He's asked about, do you think Georgia gets in with some big money transfers, namely Walter Nolan? We talked about him, or a game-breaking wide receiver. We've kind of touched on that a lot, so I hope we answered your question, Medical Dog. But referring to high school recruiting, he says, how do you make KJ Bolden a Georgia Bulldog? We're, 2 weeks and 2 days out from signing day?
Make sure that he knows that he's never going to play in a national championship.
Oh, damn.
Shots fired.
Holy damn.
I mean, you don't think that could be a recruiting pitch?
You're going to your conference is so awful. You can't play for a title even if you go undefeated.
I mean,
that's going to be a negative recruiting tool going forward, and it's just that's the way it's going to be. I mean,
I had not even thought about that.
Yeah,
I mean that really hurts the conference as a whole, just from every aspect. I mean, your conference is always going to be second tier to SEC and Big Ten. That with the teams coming in, Texas, Oklahoma, Oregon, USC going to Big Ten, you're probably going to be a tier below second tier. Mm-hmm. Those two schools are going to be it. They look at the schools. They had a post yesterday. Look at the top 11, 12 schools in the college football playoffs. All of them are SEC or Big Ten schools next year, except for Florida State.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's a great way to answer it right there. Yeah, you'll never play for a title, buddy. It's okay. You can do everything right. Oh, well, no, we won't say that. You won't. It's not that you'll never pay for a title. If one of your players gets injured, you're out. lose a quarterback, you don't get to play.
So I would sit your quarterback out at least half the season just so you have a chance.
Yeah. I'd Feed Me Tacos, one great name. And the Scary Avatar says, who is a recruit that you're excited about that maybe everyone else isn't as high on? Let's go straight to Jed May. Jed is our recruiting. He's the one that actually does all the recruiting rankings. So,
Right.
Let's see.
Right.
And
let's see.
who are you moving up in the rankings, Jed? Come on.
Jacoby White is so good, man. I always stand on the table for Jacoby White. And he just, every time you go watch him, he delivers some crazy highlights. He'll jump over a guy. He'll make a one-handed catch. He'll juke a kid out of his shoes. He'll do something. And highlighting this isn't the end-all be-all measure if you're going to be a good college player. But, man, he's really good. I think he'll be rising before this is all said and done. I mean, if he was 3 inches taller, he's probably a 5-star. But he's going to be really good at Georgia. I think he's going to prove a lot of people.
All right. Who's next?
I can go. I mean, DeMello Jones, I gushed over DeMello Jones last week, but I think a lot of people are high on him. I haven't seen many guys in this 24 class. I did see Daniel Calhoun. I think a lot of people have reasons to be high on him, but I mean, I know Trent saw him too. I know Jed saw him too. I mean, he was just mauling kids out there, and I saw him go up against Elias Williams, who's a 25 Georgia commit, one of the top tight ends in the country, who was playing outside linebacker for Camden County. And when they went up against each other, he handled him. He's a lot thicker than him, but when I asked him after the game, I was like, how does it feel, blocking someone he's, like that big? And he goes, I've never blocked someone this size. And he's playing at a high level too right now with Walton in the state championship. So I would say him for me.
All right, Trent.
I mean, I could take the easy way out and take Justin Robinson or Ellis Robinson, but I'm not going to do that because, those two guys are I think they're kids that can play day one. But I think there's, Kirby's always got somebody under the radar that he's got rated higher than everybody else, like a C.J. Allen. C.J. Allen was like the 4th linebacker in that class rated, or 3rd linebacker in that class rated. I think Chris Cole can be that guy. I think Chris Cole is a guy that can
picked my guy.
They can play numerous positions. I think he's a guy, Jalen Walker that can play inside, can be used early in his career as a speed rusher. Can even slide out and play some coverage if they play some teams and slide out and play some star. But I think mainly you're going to look at him as a guy that just be versatile. And I think Chris Cole is a guy that can definitely play early in his career just because of that versatility and Georgia's pass rush issues. He's shown in high school that he can rush the passer, and in his length and stuff. Him and Justin Williams, not Robinson. Justin Robinson played for Georgia a couple years ago, but I saw him make a catch from Mississippi State against Ole Miss. But Justin Williams is, I think that is a very good duo, and not taking anything away from the 3rd linebacker, but I think Chris Cole, just the versatility of those two guys.
All right, I'm gonna give me a tight end because I gotta have a weekly tweet about tight ends. Give me Jaden Riddle, and I'm gonna go with Ryan Puglisi just because I don't think we have him ranked in the top 250, but Georgia was very excited about him. What we had tape of almost every touchdown or play that he had up at Avon Old Farms. It's an odd league, they play on Saturdays. I don't know how good the football is up there, but it looks pretty good. And give me a quarterback. So that'll be my guy that I should say not everyone's as excited about, but all we ever hear about is people talking about is, Dylan Raiola coming in because he's the number one quarterback in the conference or in the class and the number 2 overall player. But I think Ryan Puglisi is going to give him a hell of a fight to be that starting quarterback.
If Mims elects to go pro, who's right tackle next year?
Monroe Freeland.
I guess.
Monroe?
I guess. But
because I think you're losing your depth there with if Lindbergh goes to the portal and if Blasky went to the portal. So I think that was your depth right there. So I think you could see one of these tackles. They got 6 tackles coming in. come in and be a guy that's kind of in that two deep early.
That's a good point. But I have a hard time distinguishing who's the best in that group. So that would be easy to pick one of those, but I would be almost picking blind. I mean, I watched the film. I'm like, oh, I can see why George offered him. Oh, this guy's a monster.
Well, they're all
But
6
so,
and 7.
so
and
hard.
balls.
He is so hard to come in and be that guy. And I know people say it's
Marquez Easley's a stud, man.
I don't doubt it. I'm just saying that there've been so many. I've been wrong on so many offensive linemen, that I just because there's so few people like that. There are very few 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 300-pound guys who can move. And even if you can find them, that doesn't mean they're going to be good offensive linemen. So,
it was Marquez. It was Easley that announced today that he was shutting it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm told Stacey Searle saw him last night, so that would make sense.
Oh, there you go. I got
because I saw that he made an announcement that he was shutting it down or whatever.
6'7", 315. He's a beast. But that actually brings up the question from Cbuck11. Says, who all is staff going to go see this week? Do we know that yet?
I put on the board yesterday. They saw some players. I know Nazir Johnson was one that Trey Scott went and saw yesterday. That's the newest commit, I guess. There's just so many defensive lineman commits in this class. You kind of forget how many actual bodies that they have in this class, and there's a bunch of them. And Nazir Johnson's the newest one from Dublin, and Trey Scott was down there to see him yesterday.
Love it. All right. This question from Space Pope 3: will any incoming transfers caused UGA to change plans on any of his 2024 commits? I.e., we've seen by noon there were 400 players in the portal. I'm sure by now that's probably doubled or even tripled. As if you're clicking on the Rivals transfer tracker, it is constantly being updated. There's constantly names going in there. Could Georgia get in a transfer right now? They could make them drop a 2024 commit. Let me take my stab at it first. And you guys can see if you agree or disagree. I don't see it happening because you're going to lose 10 to 15 players right now in the portal. So I think Georgia's saying, look, we've recruited these kids. We've made a promise to them. We're not going to drop them at the last minute. Let's get them in here. And again, if they don't work out, then they're in the portal next year.
You still need numbers every year, and I think that's what you're meaning by that. I think you got to bring in your guys that you got. You got to bring in your high school kids, and then you fill out the difference with whoever leaves. You fill out the difference for your portal guys, and so I don't think that necessarily the mindset of recruiting is going to change year by year as it did a couple years ago with Kirby. You can take more than 25 and all that stuff, but you take your supposed number, and then if you get a couple of portal guys, because they got an idea who's going to the portal, October, November, you get your portal, however many portal guys you got going, then you fill it out in the portal. And so I don't think much of that changes as far as the current class.
I got a question for you guys here. This is from Shownuff 253. With Brock and Marcus Rosemy-Jackson moving on next season, who is UGA's primary receiver? Is it
it's not bad.
Yeah, it's Dylan Bell, someone else by committee who's a hot guy, or is it someone coming out of the transfer portal? All right, Lance, you're on the spot.
I would say
Georgia's leading receiver next year is who?
I mean, wouldn't you say Dominic Lovett? Wouldn't you say Ra Thomas? If they're coming back.
I would say that was the three starters. Those two and Dylan.
Yeah,
would be the three starters.
Dylan Bell like a full
dude.
Like you don't.
If Anthony Evans can click that freaking burst that he had on that punt return, I swear to you, if he can play receiver and burst, have burst like that, I mean, he shot out of a dang cannon when he caught that ball.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't forget Zed Haynes.
Oh, I love Zed, and I mean, you still got Arian, so you still got those speedsters and CJ. I mean, all four of those guys can run.
He's got a second question. How comfortable is the staff with Paul, Branson, Roderick as the lead dogs in the backfield? Do you see UGA dipping into the transfer portal? We kind of touched on that one with if the right guys out there, they would, and they got 3 running back coming in. So right now, you'd have 6 guys on the 6 scholarship running backs, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And then they would maybe bring a 7th through the portal. But again, if it's the right guy, they do.
I think the issue is if you had a healthy Branson, they don't take anybody. But I think the hurt Branson is the reason why you take one, because I think Branson's probably the best out of them all.
Makes sense. Andrew Paul's coming back. He's looked pretty good at times, but again, this is year 1 after an ACL, and Roderick's got that issue that's taken a long time to heal. So, do you see UGA? The question is, do you see him dipping into the portal? Yeah, and are they
for the right guy?
Yeah, exactly.
They're not gonna dip in the portal and take a guy that they don't feel like can contribute with the other 3. But if they feel like it's an upgrade, you're always gonna look.
PA Dog 610 says, "How much sleep do y'all get in the next 3 weeks?"
Rodney never sleeps. I don't know what he does during the middle of the night, but somehow he'll end up tweeting at like 3:37 a.m.
I was up
then
until
he'll be
3
in our
o'clock in the
group
morning
meeting.
last night, and I was back at it at 8 o'clock this morning. So
Then he'll be in our group meet chat at 8:15 typing something, and I'm like, what
his
happened in the last 4 hours?
after his last message at 4:47 a.m.
I mean, he's a little different than Ben Bachman, who will tweet all night or not tweet, be on the board all night and sleep all day. He hibernates when it's light out.
we know he's a vampire, so not a ton of sleep, a lot going on. Well, but here's the thing, though. We were talking earlier about the transfer portal being like, the first day of the transfer portal was like that signing day with all the excitement going on. Signing day used to be such an event. We'd get up at like 5 o'clock, and you had to have your stuff ready because you knew that there was going to be names going down. And you're waiting for guys to put their
Get
stuff
the
in.
blind
Now
pig.
signing day, even that they've moved it up 2 months, Kirby's taken most of the drama out of it. Even last year, we're talking about, well, these 3 guys are not going to sign until February. So, and sure enough, 2 of those were the first guys to send their numbers in or letters in. So Kirby's taken a lot of the drama out of it. But boy, does when the new signing day, when we could all go to the Blind Pig and hang out together, and we can get on the microphone and talk about guys, or everybody go over to Buttsmere and hang out. That's going to be the day the transfer portal opens. That's where all the excitement is going to be for the upcoming years. So,
And a lot of, I mean, you see in the past, a lot of the guys that don't sign early actually do send their paperwork in. Georgia just doesn't announce it because they want to have a signing day ceremony in January, or February. So they actually have the paperwork in hand. They're just waiting until February.
Right. Quick question from Guatemala Mike. That may be one of my newest favorite names on there, Guatemala Mike. That just sounds like a guy you want to hang out with. Do you think missing the playoffs and losing so many experienced players might cause UGA and donors to spend more money on next year's roster? I know UGA isn't directly spending, cough, cough. Do you guys think they do have more money coming in from friends at Hunker Vodka? I'll mention them real quick because if you buy Hunker Vodka, you are helping UGA. Some of the proceeds of this go to the Classic City Collective. The Classic City Collective is UGA's NIL arm. They set up NIL deals for recruits, or guys that sign with Georgia, current players, guys that might go to the NFL. I think Gunnar Stockton probably has a new deal because he's coming back, or if Carson Beck comes back, he gets a new deal, or gets a bigger deal. They like to use the money that they have in the Classic City Collective to, if you got to pick somebody to be the face of a company, you have somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I got a car company. Who can I get?" You're like, "Well, we'd really like you to talk to this guy who might be going to the NFL, and you sign a $50,000 deal with that guy." So all of a sudden, that player's like, "Well, I don't have to go to the NFL right now. I've got 5-6 deals worth, $800,000, and the NFL will be there next year, so I'm good." The point being, do you guys think that missing the playoffs will cause more people to open up their wallets in the NIL area?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, it's not like you have a roster that's like, it's not like you had a year like Clemson where all these various roster shortcomings are exposed. I mean, you missed a playoff berth by 3 points, and if a field goal made, it goes overtime. If you don't fumble down there in the red zone, like Georgia very easily could be sitting in the playoffs. So I don't think so. I mean, the missing the playoff part of it, I don't think has anything to do with it. Now, with as you mentioned, Trent, like Kirby Smart will spend NIL on the proven guys from the transfer portal. So is there more money spent in that area than years past? Like maybe just because Georgia needs D linemen and maybe a receiver and things like that. But I don't think it would have anything to do with missing the playoff or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people misconstrue Georgia's NIL policy. Georgia's not going to go buy a recruit. Georgia's players are paid very well. So I think that's where things are misconstrued. Georgia's players are being taken care of in the right way, but they're not going to go out and say, well, we need a KJ Bolden. We're going to give him $2.3 million over 4 years, and then we're going to buy him. But that's not how Georgia's spending their money. So I think transfer portal guys that they know, families that they know that from the recruiting trail, they're going to spend money on them like they spend on their players. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what players miss. I think a lot of people say, well, Georgia don't spend NIL money. Well, there's NIL money going out, but most of it is to their proven guys.
Everybody on the team.
Yeah. They're proven guys are getting it. I mean, there's guys like Brock Bowers who doesn't even accept the NIL money from the Classic Collective. He likes to make sure other guys are treated, but because he's fine. He's got plenty of NIL deals. So I think the players are taken care of. They're just not going to take those players and take a risk on a recruit of bringing a cancer into the locker room.
All right, Lance, are you going to spend more money? And again, this isn't UGA. This is the Guatemala MyCast. This will cause UGA donors to spend more money.
I'll go by Walter Nolan.
I agree with Jed. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Unless it's a guy like Walter Nolan. I know Shamar Stewart's not in the portal yet, but guys like that are proven. And I kind of agree with Jed's point. These guys are well compensated, and as Trent's, as to back up what Trent say, they don't want to bring in they don't want to pay a high school kid, X amount, maybe like KJ Bolden, who hasn't proven himself yet. They'd rather go after and get somebody that played at the college level. And so, yeah, I would agree.
This is my thing.
Y'all are all wrong, just so you know.
If you got Caleb Downs, who's played a year at Alabama, or you got KJ Bolden, who are you taking your money and you spending it on?
Yeah.
But again, here's the thing. That's not the question.
I'll spend. Okay, you're talking about spending more money.
The question is, will donors?
I'm going to tell you this.
Who are mad as hell is what happened. Again, you're the number one team, and you dropped to 6, unprecedented for a 3-point loss on a neutral field. Alabama did not have to be undefeated to get in, but they did. Georgia apparently did have to be undefeated to get in, and then FSU was undefeated, and they don't get in. And you're sitting there going, all right, how can I affect this? This is BS.
Kirby's a defensive guy.
Stroke a check.
Kirby's all about perfection on defense.
Yeah.
You're damn right. He's going to spend money if he has a chance to spend money to get better on defense. It's going to happen. That he saw his nose tackle get blown.
He's going to have the money. Again, the whole question is, will donors? This isn't will Kirby, will UGA. The question is the people who are mad, the people who, I did a TikTok and it had like 150,000 views. There are people in there going, most of them telling me I'm an idiot, but the Georgia fans are like, we got hosed. Well, are those people who say we got hosed going to buy a shit ton of Hunker vodka? Are they going to contribute to the Georgia NIL? If you can go to Classic City Collective, you don't have to give them $100,000. You can give them $20 a month.
Well, I think
is that going to happen?
When you get spoiled and you go and you win 2 national championships, in the following year you're sitting out and you spend the whole month of December and you're not planning for a national championship. You're not planning to play in the playoffs. Yeah, I think donors are going to be. I think if Georgia needs it, donors are going to fork it because you get in that spoiled stage and you want to feel that spoiled stage again. And yes, the world's not changing. Georgia lost one game one game out of the last 46 or whatever it is, but they're going to be fine because I think if Kirby needs a defense tackle, I think donors will pony up for it. If Kirby if he says, hey, I can get you back here if I got this, if I got these funds to give this player, I can get back to the playoffs next year and I can get us back in the national championship scene. And I think donors would definitely.
I'm going to tell you, he's already done it. And I can tell you this, that I know at least one person who is listening. And yes, they are going to spend money. Georgia is going to have.
Is it
You're
Blaine
right.
Gilmer?
No, they are. To your point, there are people who want to ensure that the dynasty continues. They're like, hey, we should have had a shot at 3, and they saw what happened on. They saw where Georgia was limited. Even again, you've had 4 first-round draft picks on the defensive line, but you didn't have one of those guys this year. So if you can get Deion Walker, if you can get Jamar Stewart, you can get Walter Nolan. Now somebody's like, if we get Devon Walker, I can run an ad campaign around him. Here's my $100,000. Classic City Collective, please set this up. And then you got 3 other people, and all of a sudden he's doing more commercials than he is practicing. I could definitely see that happening.
I saw something on Twitter yesterday that said Alabama ends Georgia's dynasty, but Alabama's the one that said Georgia wasn't in a dynasty.
Yeah,
because a dynasty happens over a period of time, and I don't think Georgia is going away anytime soon.
No.
But I just that Georgia will continue winning. They got a tough schedule next year, and I think that's the reason why you have to get the D-line problems fixed, because they go to Texas, go to Alabama. I mean, they have a tough schedule.
I look at it this way: you're pretty close, but if the way you're going to win in the new with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, like you said, a tougher schedule next year, got to have the right roster. The reason Kirby Smart has 2 national championships is because roster management. And the reason we have this show, recruiting, rumors versus facts, because we're trying to weed out the garbage rumors, get to the facts, what's really going to happen. This whole show is basically about roster management and covering what it does. And it's not just because we cover Georgia. I talk to people around the nation. They all say, hey, look, the person who's the master of roster management is Kirby Smart. But you can't hit all those guys all the time. It's just it's impossible. But he's done it better than anybody else. That's why he won 29. That's why he set an SEC record for most wins. So I think that was all the questions we had for this week's show. Let me just double check there. Yeah.
Kirby builds those teams on the line of scrimmage, and when he goes back and watches the film of that game and he sees that Alabama had the advantage on the line of scrimmage, you don't think he's going to – I think he's going to do something about it. And I think he's got to do something about it with, I think, talent. And when you have that opportunity to land talent in the portal, you bring it in, and that's all you can do.
Or JUCO.
Yep.
All right, Jed. What's going to happen? We got the more recruiting rankings coming out. Let's finish up with that to kind of give us a preview of when will people see the new rankings?
Yeah, new rankings come out tomorrow. I believe it's at noon. I'll have to check my calendar and see what time I set them to go up. But new rankings come out tomorrow. The full 250 guys. Again, Georgia is quite well represented. So, and then it's Georgia State Championships are next week at this time next Monday night. It is, I forget, the single A games are Monday night, and then it's games after that. So Georgia commits and targets. We playing in Mercedes-Benz, so I don't got to be out in the rain. And yeah, it's again, it's 2 weeks from this Wednesday is signing day. So the Kirby Smart, the tricks up the sleeve, the late flips, whatever. Now is the time where it happens. So it's an exciting time for sure.
Awesome.
Hey,
we went a little long tonight, folks. Hey, I appreciate
one last question.
Sure.
If Washington gets knocked off in the first round of the playoffs, Michigan gets knocked off in one loss in the first round of the playoffs, and FSU comes and Georgia comes and plays uninspired ball like they did versus Texas, and Florida State finishes 14-0, and those 2 teams that play in the national championship finish with 1 loss, another one with 2 losses. Do we have a instance where we got somebody claiming a national title? We're the only undefeated team.
Probably.
Be the second team in Florida.
I would salute that flag. I said the same thing about Auburn when they went undefeated and they were locked out of the BCS because they were like ranked, maybe not in the top 25, and then they moved up and they're like, well, these other 2 teams that we had in the top 5, they went undefeated wire to wire, and I'm like, dude, the only reason you're not putting Auburn in there is because the preseason polls didn't have them high enough, And then UCF got kind of hosed, and I'm like, hey, you guys want to raise the flag, claim national champions? That's fine. I've seen teams claim it for less. Alabama, Georgia Tech. There's been a lot of people. There are teams that are like, oh, well, this poll we were number 1, and this other poll we weren't. So to me, if Florida State beats Georgia, they'll have beaten 3 SEC teams. I'd be like, all right.
And I think
and
that
then they'll done it with a backup quarterback. So
it can only be the case if Michigan and Washington get knocked off, because they'd be undefeated and they'd be in the playoffs. But I think if you had two one-loss teams playing for the national championship and Florida State finished undefeated at 5, I think they're going to be like, hey, it's biggest fit they're pitching right now, which rightfully so, they need to. But I think they would be like, oh, well, we're claiming national championship.
Yeah, them and Liberty
And UCF.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. It means a lot to us, and we will see you next Monday night where we'll have a lot more to talk about.